Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to import another piece of raster art, and we're going to use this as the template for a tracing, but we're going to trace by hand. And in this case, what we're going to do is kind of a pen and ink type of a sketch, which is the simplest type of drawing that you can do. We're not going to work with or be concerned with editing nodes and selecting and modifying nodes. And so we're going to do a very simple pen and ink sketch. And the whole idea with this is that if I'm an artist, I can take a photograph, import it, and trace it, or I can take my own drawing. And so lots of times, if you're working in Illustrator, if you want to do illustration, if you want to do drawings or paintings in Illustrator, the best thing to do is to literally sketch the drawing out on a sheet of paper the way you normally would. It's really hard to just draw directly in Illustrator, especially with a mouse. It's better to just commit that original drawing to a sheet of paper, scan it in, and then you can begin to use it as a template for a drawing. And this method is a pen and ink type of a drawing. And then later on, I'll show you how to do work with an illustration where you have to modify, open and close individual shapes. So I have a canvas here. The canvas is 8.5 by 11. If I were printing the object out, I'd have to be aware of the screen size. If I'm not concerned about that, because the thing about vector shapes is I can make them any size I want. And I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to choose Place, and I'll give you guys copies of the artwork that we'll be using for this exercise. And so we're going to the folder for Adobe Illustrator, Portraits. I'm going to grab a portrait, open it, and I'll provide these for you as well. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click and drag, and here's my piece of artwork that I'm going to do a tracing of. Now, what I want to do is embed it. I come up to the top here, click embed. I've now embedded the piece of art. And then what I want to do is a double click, and on this bottom layer, I'm going to lock it. And here's the original image. And I'm going to dim the image to 50%. And the idea is I can see the image, but I can still be able to trace over it. So now what I'm going to do, by locking the image and dimming it to 50%, I'm going to make a new layer, and I can use this for tracing. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the pencil tool for this. So we've looked at the brush. I could use the brush. I already explained some of the properties of the brush, but instead of the brush, we're going to work with the pencil tool. So the pencil tool is a little bit different. I'm going to do a tear off here. And here's my pencil tool. So there is the shaper tool, the pencil, the smooth tool, eraser, and join tool. And I'm going to explain how each one of those tools work. And then we're going to proceed to do this drawing. So let me just grab the pencil and draw a shape on the screen. And I'm going to make that shape have a stroke. And if I grab this shaper tool and run over the shape, oops, I'm sorry, let's grab that shaper tool and run over the shape with the shaper tool. What the shaper tool does is it takes shapes that I draw and it makes them into perfect shapes. And that's really all that the shaper tool does. I'm not really sure why they felt the necessity to create that. I'm going to delete that. So when I'm using that pencil tool, I'm going to double click. There's a bunch of options for the pencil tool. So let's look at the first option, which is keep selected. And then close paths when ends are within 15 pixels. So, and then also let's look at edit selected path. So keep selected means that the last shape last line I draw will be selected. And if I come within a certain number of pixels, it's going to close it. So if I come close enough, it's going to close that shape. So it wasn't quite close enough there. Let's try it again. I'll make this a little thicker so you can see it. Let's do it again. Let's see here. We can get it to close. There we go. So within a certain number of pixels, it's going to close the shape. Okay. Let's double click and look at those other options. Keep selected. So when I draw a path, the last path I draw is selected. And depending on what you're doing, you may or may not want that option to be available, to be on, okay? And then edit selected paths within 6 pixels. What does that mean? Well, if I draw another path, another shape within 6 pixels of this original shape, it's going to think that I'm redrawing the original shape instead of drawing a new one. So that's what edit selected paths means, within a certain number of pixels, right? So I can turn those options on and off depending on what I'm doing. Now this shape right now is selected, and because it's selected, I can move on to the smooth tool, and I can take that and rub it over this, and I can literally smooth that line. Then I have my path eraser. I can click and I can erase portions of the line. And then the next one over is the join tool, which will allow me to join the lines, okay? And that's really my suite of pencil, that's my pencil suite. I'm gonna double click on the pencil tool. Now I also have the option of filling new pencil strokes. If I click that and click OK, and I can choose a fill color. And when I draw with the pencil tool, it's gonna fill it. So generally what I do is I work without filling, and then I add the fill in later, but it depends on what your preferences are and how you're editing the document. Let's go back up to the pencil tool. Let's look one more time. You have fidelity, and on one end is accurate, and on the other end is smooth. You just have 2 sliders, so it always kind of works against you. Having one, I think, makes a lot more sense. So if I drag it to the left, it's going to make my lines much more carefully. Let's turn off the fill option. It's going to much more carefully trace what I do with my hand. If I double click and I increase that smoothness, it's going to round out the corners as I draw and make it smoother. So for this particular piece of art, what I'm going to do, let's delete these shapes, we don't need them, is I'm going to make my brush stroke 1 pixel. I'm going to double click and I'm going to make my accuracy fidelity down to accurate. I don't want to keep the line selected, and I don't want to edit the selected path. So it's going to depend on what type of artwork you're doing. Now I'm on the top layer, and I'm going to zoom in, grab my pencil, and then all I want to do now is create a tracing of the artwork. So I won't sit and do the whole thing, but the idea with something like this is that I can create a piece of artwork, and it can either be from something I've already drawn. Now, maybe that's a little too eccentric. Maybe I'll take that accuracy a little bit to the left so it's a little bit smoother. And then I can experiment with different brush stroke sizes. Maybe I'd like it as 2. And she's got some eyelashes here. And so I can turn off the bottom layer as I work. And as you can see here, you can begin to create a piece of art from a photograph. Now you can also take one of your own drawings and do this with it. You don't have to start with a photograph. If you sketch or draw, you can start with something like that. And so this is just a very simple way to create a pen and ink drawing. I'm doing this a little bit quicker than I would if I were doing this for real, but I think you get the idea. Okay. All right, so there's lots of different ways to create illustrations in Illustrator. This is a very good exercise for beginners, so it gets you used to working with those beginning tools, the pencil options, and how to modify them, okay? And so I can do other things. Let's go back in, let me show you something. After I've made these shapes, I can select one of these shapes. Let's say I select this stroke here. And under select, there's a menu here that allows me to modify everything that fits into a certain category. So I can select the same fill and stroke, fill color, opacity, stroke color, stroke weight. Let's say I want to change the stroke weight. I'll come down and choose same stroke weight. So everything on the screen that has the same stroke weight can now be modified. Okay. And I can do that with other things too. Right now I'm just manipulating stroke weight, but if I go under select and choose same, I can modify appearance, blending mode, film stroke, etc. Okay. And so that is how you do a pen and ink drawing in Adobe Illustrator. And we started with a photograph, imported it, put it in a bottom layer, locked it, dimmed it, and then we did a tracing over it with our pencil.